Boy, I tell you what, you got a good group of teams there to cover between Belen and Los Lunas and Valencia. All three of those programs have seemed to have really solid years, if not, fighting for a state championship, playing for a state championship over the past few seasons.
Yeah, it's been a pretty remarkable run the last couple of years. It seemed like the switch for Los Lunas from 5A to 4A was obviously a great boon, and then they got in. They've had a couple of really good coaches, and Valencia has been developing really well, and Belen has just, been solid. Coach Lerma is a South Texas guy, and he brought in a little different of an approach. They've always kind of been smash mouth football. Gave them that little nudge that's taken them to, last year it took them to the state semifinals, and this year some people think they might make it all the way to the state finals.
So of the three teams in the area, you think Belen is the best, or Valencia? Who are you picking out of those three to maybe possibly have the best season?
Right now, I would say it's going to probably come down to Belen and Valencia. Belen's got that little bit of the edge partially because of depth. Valencia is a newer school, and they're the county school, whereas Los Lunas is like the city school or the town school, and so their numbers aren't terrific. They could end up being the ones winning, but Belen has numbers, and they've got a little more experience. They didn't lose quite as much through graduation, and what they did lose, it seems like they've been able to replace fairly easily. So at this point, I would say Belen's probably the favorite in the district, although Centennial, I think, is going to have a lot to say about how the district ends up as well.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting district to watch for those six teams, no doubt about it. Let's talk about Valencia a little bit. Is this the best team they've had in program history going into this year? Was that last year? How do you view this year's crop?
Well, it's not the best in history. They had I believe it was a 10-2 season a couple of years ago, and they went to they made the state quarterfinals, I believe, that year. So last year's was a good team. They were very much under the radar. They beat Belen at Belen, and it was a defensive game, which was a surprise to, I think, everybody in the state. It ended up being a 7-0 win. They basically controlled the ball, and then they were able to really shut down Belen's option. It was kind of their Super Bowl game, and then they kind of faded down the stretch. Los Lunas, they came out really flat against Los Lunas, which last year was so loaded with all those talented and quick seniors. So that game was basically the district championship. It was on their field, and Los Lunas just kind of raced by them. They still had a great year. Los Lunas graduated all those guys. Now Valencia has a lot of talented seniors that are coming back this year that are going to be the key to their season.
What do you think the biggest strength of the Jaguars team is this year?
It's definitely their backfield. They've got three guys who run at about a 4.5 40, Josh Burbank, Nate Nash, and Tyler McLaren, and they're kind of, they're sort of interchangeable as far as who's going to be in that tailback position, and they run the flexibone. So they're option team, but they can throw it. From my understanding, is they're working on things to get everybody involved. If you only see Burbank in the backfield, if you might see Nash and McLaren out as a wideout, or in the slot or something like that. So they're definitely they can spread the field on you, but they can also they need to go power. They can do that too. They've got a pretty good wideout in Chris Alvarez, and then their quarterback Garrett Gibson. He's 6'6". He's kind of lanky at this point. From what I understand, that's the only knock on him, is that he needs to get some more meat on his bones. He could be a pretty effective quarterback at the college level if he could just beef up a little bit. But right now, in terms of high school ball, he has great vision on the field, and he's tough too. It's like it's funny, we were joking when I was doing our preview. He's got a little bit of a gangly run, but and it looks like he's gonna get hit. He's gonna fold in half. He takes the hits, and he just somehow finds a way to get extra yardage. If you catch him in a situation like that, he's got a pretty decent arm. They've got a lot of weapons in the backfield, but he's a pretty good sugar man. Talking
with Kenn Rodriguez of the Valencia County News Bulletin. The Tigers taking on the Jaguars Friday night at 7 o'clock. You can hear the game here on ESPN Alamogordo 103.7. You talked about the backfield and their ability to run the football. Does this team have a good offensive line? Are they good up front?
That's their question mark coming in. They lost a couple of guys on the right side of the line. They lost their center, so they're kind of rebuilding, but everyone's, from the coach down to the and to the players are very confident that the guys that they're bringing in are gonna be able to step in and do the job. Their two seniors, Alex DeRizzo and Nathan Jolly, are also the coach's son. But I know in terms of experience, they're gonna, they're helping kind of get these other guys ready for more than just reserve positions, which is what they kind of filled before. They seem very confident. There's a couple of juniors coming in, Isaac Lewis and Caden Sharp, who will probably be there on that right side of the line. They've been very confident with the way those guys have developed over the summer, and they go both ways. So it's the defensive line. Those guys can come in and get into the system and do their jobs. Obviously, then that just unleashes that backfield.
Let's talk about the defensive side. You mentioned they had some really great games last year. You noted the game against Belen. I think they also pitched a couple other shutouts. How's this group compared to last year? Is this a team or a side of the ball that is going to be difficult for other teams to figure out?
They seem to be banking on their ability to play aggressively. Last year, with the exception of Belen, the teams that ran a lot of misdirection seemed to find some success against them. Their problem, again, is going to be personnel. Like I said, they've got the new guys coming in on the line. They've got one particularly experienced linebacker, Orlando Lucero, coming back from last year, and he's also coming in on the offensive line as well. But he's linebacker on the defensive end. He's going to take over that middle linebacker position, and so they're kind of figuring that out. Their defensive backfield is actually very solid. Again, you're going to have Nash and McLaren back there. They're trying to figure out, I believe it was the free safety position, because they've got Garrett Gibson back there right now. But obviously, you've got a quarterback of his caliber. On one hand, he's a great athlete, so you want him on the field at all times. On the other hand, he's your quarterback. So, they don't necessarily want to have him out there. They may put him out there if they go to a five-back defensive situation. But for the most part, they want to keep him on the sidelines during the defensive parts of the game. And I think, it's the kind of thing where if they can get everyone to mesh right away, and they've been confident, like I said, during practices, and they ran they did 7-on-7 stuff over the summer, and they obviously had their scrimmage during 0 week. Things seem to be clicking for them. It's a question mark, just like the offensive line, but like I said, they're confident. They sound very confident.
In your talks with the coach, Valencia wins this game against the Tigers if they do what? What is the key to their game from their perspective, or from your perspective?
Well, talking to Coach Jolly, it's basically it's execution. They're putting in some new wrinkles. They may not bring them out all that away because they want to get that, make sure that they run that core part of their playbook well. And it's basically, on offense, it's going to be getting the ball to to guys in space, or creating something off of the line if they're going in if they're running between the tackles. On defense, again, it's execution. It's knowing your assignments. It's very much the mental part of the game that it seems like that they're really focusing on. I don't think they have any doubts in their physical abilities. They shouldn't. The guys who are on the line are, we were looking at, Isaac Lewis is 6'3", 220. Orlando Lucero is 6'1", 220. Jolly is 6'4", 265. University of Montana is kind of hot on his trail for recruiting-wise.
So they've got some good size.
Yeah, so, they're... And same thing on defense. The speed that those guys, that Nash and McLaren bring on the offense, that's closing speed on defense. So they're not, they feel like they've got a pretty good handle on the physicality of the game. It's the mental part. And
for from the Tiger standpoint, I'd imagine being able to handle any type of misdirection that Valencia's going to throw, running the flex bone, and vice versa in the defense. If they can maybe switch it up a little bit on the Valencia defense, that sounds like those might be the points of attack if the Tigers want to be successful.
Sounds like it. And having seen them, having seen Alamogordo last year against Los Lunas, I think it's not quite going to be, I don't think, at the same level that Los Lunas is running, because I think there were times last year that Alamogordo, just what Los Lunas was throwing at them, you could see them second guessing themselves out on the field, and I don't necessarily think they'll be in that kind of a situation this year against Valencia, but it could be. And it really depends on how much they've developed over the last year and through spring and summer practices.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly, we're going to find out what the off season's been like for Alamogordo going into this game. Real quickly on Valencia, this is a team capable of fighting out for a state title in 5A, or would that be maybe dreaming a little bit too high, or does this team have the players to at least be in the discussion?
Oh, they've definitely got the talent. Coach Jolly is and his staff. They're a solid staff. They're going to need some breaks. The district is a tough one. The schedule lays out somewhat well for them. It's really going to come down to depth for them, because if they have any kind of injury problems at all, it's going to slow down any kind of run that they might be able to develop. And then obviously, if they don't win the district, I mean, this 4A is so loaded, that if you're not able to get one of those top 4 seeds, it sets you up with a potential road game at a Goddard or at a Farmington or at an Artesia. Although like Artesia had to go on the road last year, but so I think they've got the, like I said, they've got the talent. They're going to need some breaks and they're going to need some luck on health wise, but they could do it.
All right, Ken, we'll really appreciate the knowledge on Valencia, and we'll hopefully talk to you next week when it comes to the Tigers taking on Los Lunas. Really appreciate your time today.
No problem. Thank you.